starting soon because there will be another session afterwards, so we have to be on time as well. So please take your seats. And yes, perfect. Right. So good morning, everyone, and I really appreciate you coming to the workshop today. I know that agenda is packed, and I'm sure that yesterday night was also filled in. When I was leaving SCORE at 9:30, I saw it was full. That was probably one of the very few living. So that's thank you very much. I appreciate that you joining today in the morning. We'll be presenting together with Krzysztof. And I start. My name is Michał Truchimczuk. I'm a co-founder and a managing partner at Solars. We founded Solars 23 years ago, so 23 years with Solars. And we're presenting together with Krzysztof. If you, Krzysztof, can.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Krzysztof Biernat. I'm a sector lead for our London market practice. And that's where we have this example also for today's workshop.
Wonderful. And since we introduced ourselves, I was kind of thinking just to have a group introduction, just to understand what groups are here, so we can tailor the presentation. So, any one of you who is representing insurance company? Okay, I see that's pretty. Some of you, very good. Any one of you representing reinsurer? Okay, all right, okay. And then any one of you representing broker? Okay. All right. Okay. So we have whole value chain. So it's like insurance broker, reinsurer, and I would assume there are some professionals representing professional services, right? So any one of you professional services? Okay. So I'll see here. Okay. So we have the whole value chain. Good. Maybe one more question is those who are more on the business side, please raise your hands. Are you more on business side? Anyone is on technical side? Okay, so you like business language. Good, that's what we thought as well. So we're not going to speak bytes and bits. That what we prepared today is more system agnostic. So we are more showing how that we think should be done and based on examples, right? Very good. So let me maybe shortly tell you who we are, that you know. So we are a consulting company and system integrator in the market for 23 years. In green, you have the markets where we have offices and local strong local know-how. White, you will see countries where we have supported transformations, and solely focus on insurance, bank insurance, risk management, and reinsurance. Here you see about side of us, we are 1,000-ish. What differentiates us, we are very, very centrally organized, so that means that the central staffing, central know-how. So we don't like many organizations are local and they between the countries they talk to each other. We are very, very centrally, so we make sure that whole know-how is shared, and we're very selective in terms of hiring. So it's less than 2% of candidates they make through to Solars. So that's why we are a very, very strong team. So that's what differentiates us. And today, there are several competences that we have. Today we'll be actually covering several of them because there will be a lot of around data. There will be, which you see here. We'll be speaking about core systems since we are helping insurers and reinsurers implementing core systems. So we see what's there. Normally, very, very few insurance systems have strong reinsurance part. Reinsurance normally using core system just to register data once the deal is done. So there's a lot of big part of process where data actually is not structured. So you have a lot of unstructured data and communication. That's what we'll be speaking about. And a lot of things about cloud, because many solutions now actually are available in cloud. And but that's just to say those competences actually being covered during this presentation as well. Good. So let's get to surrounding. So last 3 years, the net cat losses almost doubled, and I think even yesterday I was listening to the speech of the Prince and then the president of Rendezvous. They were also speaking about the same trend worldwide. So you see more spread around catastrophes which are happening more frequent. Myself, I'm a homeless guy traveling around the world all the time. So, when I'm in Australia, I always hear about floods New Zealand this year. Floods New Zealand making results for insurers in New Zealand very, very hard. When I was last week in Japan, of course, there's a problem of claims inflation, but catastrophic risks are making their job very well, which making very hard for Japanese insurers to be profitable. And I was flying through Hong Kong, so it was very interesting to see on Friday Hong Kong after typhoon. So and then when you open the news, when you read newspapers, you hear about wildfire Hawaii. I mean, it's like every second, third day you hear about catastrophic risks happening, right? So that's we all aware this is all around us, right? What's not helping is reinsurers, insurers, brokers communicate each other through mails, through unstructured data, and therefore you're using Excel spreadsheets. So when I go and see our transformations we're doing with reinsurers or with insurers, I just see that the strongest tool in the reinsurance process is Excel spreadsheet. And this is like the tool, right? But this is not sufficient, because when you're getting more frequency catastrophic events, you really need to start modeling data. So this is not a long-term solution, and this has to change. And that's maybe one thing is probably it's easier for us to think about structured data, because that's what we can have in systems, and then we can have all programs or quality assurance of those data. But it's much harder for us with unstructured data. And we have good tools those days, and you actually can leverage those tools. So that's ChatGPT recently was a very good education solution that a lot of us could try and understand, hey, there is artificial intelligence that can help. We will speak about tools later. So first thing is to see whether you have data available, so quality data, what data are available, and whether you have unstructured data, so whole ingestion. Ingestion is about automatically getting data from different sources to digitalize them, and then based on the text, understand the content of data to be able to map it to to the customer, to the claims, or to a possible object, and to do it in an automated way. The thing about it, I mean, you're getting many more tools. So like, the clouds, all big providers, Google, AWS, Azure is providing very, very good tools for that, which we leverage on several programs. There's one thing about unstructured data. We in insurance, we are very risk averse, and we strive for perfectness, especially Japan, Germany. So we are expecting to have 100% correctness of processing those unstructured data. When you process unstructured data, you have to accept some level of risk, some level of unperfectness. It's not going to be 100% perfect. It's going to be 95, 94. But still, if you use that and automate, you can do a very good job. And then afterwards, you have transfer between systems. At the very moment, various systems are not really integrated. So this is like mails and different ways of doing this. So we have two parts. We will start with active risk management. So how can you actively manage risk? And maybe just one thing is, when you want to actively manage risks, first you have to identify. And this is, to identify is just to know that there's such a risk is there. I'll give you in a moment examples that sometimes you're looking at a very small risk where the risk must be much bigger. And when you identify risk, that's a lot, already a lot. And then afterwards assess. But when you identify the risk, then assessment is a little bit easier. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying easier. And then mitigate and monitor, how it's going further. That's theory. Let me give you an example. So for example, like Evergreen. Have we all heard about Evergreen and Suez Canal, right? So probably when you hear about that incident, what you think, hey, how much does it cost to fix canal, how much does it cost to fix the ship? But when you look at the overall cost, this is peanuts. The actual risk was there that through Suez Canal there's 12% of the trade coming through, right? So and then the Suez Canal was just not operational, and that's actual risk. Or another one is that there's every day going 1 million barrels of oil. So that's influencing energy in many countries. So that's actually the risk you're looking at. Another thing is this is what happening. As I said, I'm a homeless guy, but I come from Poland. I'm based in Cologne. So what's happening in Germany and Switzerland? There are a plug of hails, and once they happen, it has a huge impact on claims because all cars standing outside, and both Germans and Swiss, they like good cars, right? Very expensive cars. So after such a hail, it's like the cost of claims is very high. So what Swiss did, they actually have a very good sensors informing insurers the hail is coming, and then insurers connecting to their customers, hey, take your car or whatever you have outside and find a garage whatsoever. This has very good impact because that's active risk management. This is actually ensuring that customers will do something, and then the cost of claim will go down. Right.
Thank you, Michał, for the introduction. I will just pick it up from here. And in order to properly assess and actively manage the risks, you need to have a lot of data. You have a common sources like your own policy systems, your own information about the claims which happened, but it's not enough. It's easy to integrate and use available public or commercial databases, so you have information about the probability of occurrence of any catastrophic risks, like flood, hurricanes, where there was a lately fire, and it can be ingested into your systems. And I will show you briefly later on how to visualize it, because one of the things is to get the data, the other thing is to understand this data and consume it. We are humans. It's not easy for us to just introduce some Excel spreadsheet into our brain and then live with it. We need to see it. Usually that's how you consume the data. Then our brain can process it. And another things which are also available on the market are some kind of the reports. It helps you, for example, to establish the financial condition of the firms that you are insuring. So there are databases which do due diligence for you. So have basic information about where they come from, what is the structure of the ownership, what's their P&L, what was the results in the past. And those are the examples of those databases. So like global database, Dun & Bradstreet. You have also information about the health information, sometimes in general, sometimes what's available there if you are into the healthcare reinsurance. And something which is not so obvious, but it's like popping out, when you are doing negotiations or treaties or analyzing the risks, sometimes it's good to know what's happening right now. And waiting for information from the newspapers is not enough. So we see in action some kind of crawlers who are right now going through the Twitter. I have an old logo, so they are changing to the X right now, or Facebook, or any other information, for example, like the information about what's happening with the weather currently, right now. So it's not like forecast for the future, but what's happening at this moment and at the whole world. And you can introduce into your system when you're analyzing your offers. And active risk management is like a continuous process. It's not once and done. So you're not doing this per one contract, but you're doing this on continuous matter. So of course, there are phases in which you are just doing analysis when you want to grow, where you want to expand. So you have this strategic planning, and there you also assess what are your risk limits, and that's important thing. And you are doing this per, of course, risk, but you have different regions. So having all the data in one place helps you to have a proper decision. When we are working with one of the brokers in reinsurance, they of course grow through the acquisition. So they have multiple systems. They didn't align them. They have some kind of the data layer which they created to consume the data, but it's like delayed by 10, 20, 30 days. So we do not know actively what's happening there. And also, when you are doing like the treaties, they are siloed via regions. So sometimes APAC region is selling something which influences the USA. USA is selling something which influences APAC region. And in order to properly assess it, it's good to have all this knowledge in one tool, in one place, and see what's right now is happening with your risk. And of course, risk analysis I already mentioned there. And negotiations is not like static place. It's not like you have all the data prepared and then you have month and a half to just negotiate the financials in the contract. You need to know what's happening. If, like I said, or any sales happened or something big is happening right now on the world, or you can expect some catastrophic things in the country or in a particular risk which you're right now negotiating. And lately, at the end, when you already have the deal done, it's already in your system, it's good to know what's happening with this risk. So it's not only like this preparation for the negotiation, but know on a daily basis what's happening with your risk. We have, and we are used to the sales quotas. We know what's happening, and there are a lot of systems which supports it already to see information if the daily, monthly quotas for the sales are already done. But for the risks, that's not happening yet. Yeah, we are doing this on a monthly, quarterly basis to see if we are going in a real good direction. And it's best to have it available for you at the hand, and at the moment that somebody is already starting negotiations, or the deal is done. Yeah, so you see, based on the region, country, where is your risk split between the dimensions that's important for you. Where is the challenge with it? I already mentioned that there are a lot of risks. It's not like you are usually having in one contract one thing, but you have like a property, you have cargo, you have business interruptions, and this all combines. So on one place, in one particular area, in one building, you can have exposure to multiple risks. It can be put on fire. It can be smashed by the hurricane. Yeah? So you need to be aware. If it does not multiple, this does not mean you have more risk in one place concentrated than you want to have it. You have lack of standardization. So it was already mentioned that the like normal communication is done via emails. You have attachments, which are usually PDF Word documents, which are not easy to ingest, and it doesn't make like easy ingestion of the data. You have data diligence, but I will just move to that on the second part of the example. Of course, regulatory issues, and the market, like I said already, is not waiting in a place. And then you have this alignment with your portfolio, but at the risk level, so not the like sales. And just move to the example, which we prepared with one of the clients. It's removed from all the sensitive data, but you can see how it worked and how we agreed to do this with them. Yeah. So the first step is like data load. And there we are doing like first a data standardization. So we agreed with them what kind of data is sufficient for them to do a risk analysis. And if on any of the sources the data is missing, we are enriching this by the comparison with the data. So we have like a common denominator for all the repositories, and we just structure the data in a way they want. The second step is enrichment. Enrichment is not only injecting data from the external sources, but it's also replacing the data which are in the format not useful for visualization. For example, when you have an address, it's not enough to do a geocoding. So we use the Google API to transfer addresses to the longitude, and then you can just visualize them on the map, and you can see it. Yeah. And any other like correction of the data selection, if it is usable for you or not, and then slicing it into the dimensions that are relevant for you. And the result is like example of this result is just a heat map where the colors show you where is your current exposure to the risk selected here. So the darker the color is, the more concentration of your risk is currently there. And the pins is information where this new contract or the new contracts are putting risk on top of that what's there. And based on that, they are using this as the additional layer of assessment of the risk management during the contract negotiation. Okay, so that concludes the first part. If you have any questions. No, okay. Maybe in the second part.
Are you doing that the same way?
maybe one more thing. Apart from the visualization, we also created for them dashboards, yeah? But that's like a second layer and the second step. So they can monitor, like I said, on a daily basis what's happening with the risks. And based on that, they also prepared some kind of the standard reports, which are sent to them, so they can have it in a static form, or they can access them through the tool. So they have like link that information that today new deal was done, see what changes in your region. And we are working right now on the enhancement maybe in the future, but we'll see if they want to do this, some kind of the subscription. So we are saying what's interesting for you. So for example, if you are in one kind of the risk or in one region, you can say that only changes in this area are interesting for you and then subscribe to those changes, yeah? Okay, let's move on. So the second part is about how to tackle the unstructured data. Michał already gave some hints, but right now I have a question maybe. We'll be able to speak. How many data you suspect to be in unstructured format, meaning a percentage? If all the data is 100%, how many of that is it in unstructured way? Structured meaning like a simple digits, numbers, dates, and so on, and structured meaning anything else. Any guesses? 95, okay. Okay, we move on. It's close, but it's 80. So the current, like the reports which analyze the flow of the data is 80, but it's growing. So it could be soon like 95. Why it's growing, I will just explain in a few seconds, just to show you what's the structured, what's unstructured on examples. So the structured, which is something which are used to, it can be displayed in an easy format like rows, columns, and it is what I already mentioned, like data, meaning dates, numbers, or strings, meaning simple words. Yeah. So that's something which is structured. It's easy to be stored, and it consumes not as much storage as other data, and we are used to that because it's with us for many, many years. What's unstructured data? It's something which are also right now used to, but our systems and like the machines which are processing that are not yet used to that. And it's like video, so you have this kind of, you have audio files, but also things like document, words meaning Word document, PDF documents, and attachment to the mails or even mails, yeah? They are not so easy to be automatically readable by the algorithms. And this consists of the 80%. And the thing which is also like a crucial for that, it's they require much more storage. In the raw data, the video files or the audio files or even PDF or Word documents can be huge. Raw data, it's easy to store and it's easy to process. And the difficulties, like I mentioned, is just like you have to be able to process those growing volumes, so we need to move, and it's already happening, from on-site storage places to cloud native storage places, because the volumes and the growth of those volumes, because the daily increase is so big that it's not easy to store it, yeah? The thing is, it's also usually not aligned with each other, because the normal data you are doing with a format that allows to comparison. So we have like some kind of IDs or like the identification of the person or address or whatever, and it's easy to compare different sets of data. In unstructured data, it's one of the things is to extract the data and then find a common denominator to make it usable for your cases. Yeah? And then, of course, when you have this data transferred from unstructured to structured format, you go into the same regulations as the regular data. So how to ensure that it's safe and it's accessed only by the people who can access it. Yeah? So local regulations, depending on the country, they can be more strict or less strict, but they are still there. And at the beginning, it's not usable by any automatic systems, and you need to transform it. And for that, it's just to visualize that the first step is determine what kind of data you need. It's only example, so it's not like a model that you can just copy and then use it. But the thing is that you made those unstructured data into some kind of readable format for your machines, algorithm systems, or the humans. Yeah? So that's also part of the exercise. And you make this data reference to each other. So you have the data from the claim system, you have from the external system, about the policy, about the client, about the region. Yeah? And we did it also for one of our clients, and we did it, and we advised it, and at the end I will also say about that, to do it in the simple step. So we started with like one simple business case, which was having already results. We started with a simple architecture. It needs to be based on the cloud, but it's cloud agnostic, so whatever cloud you have used to, or whatever you want to use, we can go there. So we can use a Google, Amazon, and Microsoft Azure. And you can use business rules engine, which is good for you. We use Camunda, but it's not like obliged to be done by that. You do not need to have a lot of documents. In our case, it was 200, 500 documents, depending on the type of the document, to train the model, to recognize patterns in the document. And then later on, some kind of the additional sample to test it, if it really recognized properly. So it was not a part of the training, because if you train on something, then for sure it will recognize, but you need to have a test sample. And another thing is not to expect from those algorithms and I think automation also to be 100% change of the world, so it not do 100% of the automation. From our experience, it's 80, 90% of the cases that could be automated, and it means that everything can be automated, but doesn't make sense from the economic point of view, because time spent to train algorithms on the documents which are happening once per year is not relevant. It's better to have someone who will just copy this data and just understand how this document works. And just to show you, like in the context of the reinsurance, how it can be used, we have one of the documents structured in this way, so it's not easy to input this into the system, but we made it scan through the algorithms, and they determine patterns. So they know that it's excess of loss reinsurance contract. They found the layers of the contract and determine the first, that there are 4 number of layers. They determine the amount per occurrence limit and amount of this thing, the currency, and the premium for that. It's just example, yeah? But it shows you how this algorithm works. So they know the documents, they go through them, they see how they work, and then extract the data. And on this side, you can see that this is data in the structure that is easily then consumed by your systems or by humans. Okay. So that concludes those 2 examples. And the thing to just repeat is just begin with a small team, take a business case which is reliable to prove a success. So we use, for example, one of the things to show this in other place, sales. So we just show the dashboard which automated the information from the offers, and on daily basis could provide information what's happening there. And because of that, it is right now spread to the other areas. Yep.
So any questions you have, or any observations, or you want to share how you're doing things, or what issues you seeing in your operations? Because the intention was to show you how we were solving that on our programs and what an approach we were taking. But we're very, very interested in particular your topics that you have, or issues, or you might have also questions about that's what we have presented.
My question is, how do you do it, step by step? Let's say I was an insurance company, I call you up, so what happens? I mean, it looks as if you have hundreds of people working for you.
Yeah, but what we advise, and we are doing this with the clients, we start with some small exercise at the beginning. It's called inception, but it's like to get to know your processes, your needs. It's usually 2-3 weeks exercise at the beginning, which at the end have a roadmap, so you know what can be done, what will be the effort, so how to tackle this, what are our propositions, what are the tools available to use. And the team is small, usually it's 2 to 4 people, depending on the scale of organization, scale of the problem, yeah? So we usually advise to start small, do some kind of like the recognition of your organization. We can show you already on this moment more details, how it can be approached, what tools can be used, and analyze your systems, because that's at the end you also need to know what kind of IT architecture you have in your company. And then we propose a backlog, how we can proceed. It can be split, and also in those 3 weeks, 3 to 4, depending on the scale, but usually it's 2 3. We can propose the information about what will be the business outcomes. Yeah. So what's the most important based on the talks with you and the priorities, and we do prioritization of this backlog also. And we work in a small increment, so it's not like we are proposing a huge project later on to which will take 2 years to deliver anything. The next phase usually is around few months. Yeah. Because or we are successful and then it's proven that it works, or we are not successful and it doesn't make sense to go further. But from our experience, most of the times we are going further. Yeah?
So when would you not be successful?
It's usually because of the business case, yeah. Because you see, we can identify what can be automated, and we can say it takes like 3 weeks, yeah. But 3 weeks for someone can be too much still money to sustain their business case. It's not like technology. Technology, that's easy, yeah. But it's just your appetite for how much you can invest versus what's your gain, yeah. When we are going, for example, with the London market insurance and we are just automating their claim processes, at the beginning we have like 20, 30 processes to assess. But at the end, we are choosing like 1, 2, which are or reducing their effort, meaning they can have less people, or they are doing something automatically. So, for example, they can respond to some emails, or maybe not emails because it's like automatic communication, like automatic response for the information. I received this claim and I confirm that I have all the data 24 hours per 7. Yeah. So, because normally they're working like 9, 10 hours per day, and then they have this capability to respond it automatically. Or they can scale up without additional people. So that's the main drivers if we're talking about the claims, yeah?
Okay. I have another question, and that is, structured versus unstructured data.
Mm-hmm.
If you structure them, do you lose the it means reducing things, into categories. Does that mean that you're actually losing the flexibility or the diversity or whatever you can call it?
We are extracting from the unstructured data what's crucial for us. So the wordings, meaning something which is not data used, is left in the original document, but everything what is like our target, so meaning premium, duration, currency, dates, people who are there, it's still there and you can use in any place. But of course it's not like you cannot translate only that we want to be with you and we will be successful. That's something which is lost on this way. Yeah? So if something in contract which is not useful for you in your risk analysis, in claim processes, in offering, is left in our original document.
Okay. And how do you keep up with technology in your systems?
We have like the partnership with all the major providers. So we are the vendor agnostic. So those tools are not our like proprietary tools. They are based on the algorithms which are in the cloud. So for example, in this case, we use some kind of the Google machine learning algorithms, and we just based on them. We are based also on Camunda. So they are developing the tools. We learn with them. So we have like a good cooperation and we know what's happening. And because we have a hands-on experience, it's easy for us to apply to new clients.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I see that.
Thank you, and very interesting presentation, so thank you very much. I want to just go back to the structured, unstructured data, 80-20% point. Could the market, in your opinion, not do more to swing that round so that it's structured data in the first place, rather than extracting it from the document? So, for example, a premium will have started as structured data in somebody's system somewhere. So I see it's expensive to then try and extract that from a document. So what could we do as a market to present structured data to each other in the first place?
What I see is that just all the markets at some point see the value of the structuring of the data because it makes less effort for you, but it requires some initial effort.
Don't want to borrow mine.
Whoa. Okay, it works. So it requires some additional effort from you. We see it, for example, in the London market. They have exchanging platform, and they're doing like always this evolution of the information they're exchanging. Until now, it was useful in the claims area. There is right now Blueprint 2 program, which is introducing this the same for the offers. But it means someone at the beginning, and usually it's broker, that's not to be, not to leave elephant in the room, is the one who needs to assess properly and input the data, because what you put into the flow, you will get at the end, yeah? And that's usually where is right now I see it talks, because all parties want to have a better data, but not a single one of them wants to be the one who have like more burden, yeah? Because having a good data at the entry means that you need to be careful what's there, verify it, so more effort for you. So yes, the standards are there. There are some standards from the past, like Accord is doing some kind of the standards which are common for the insurance. They started with the paper blankets. Right now, they are doing this on the electronic forms. But it's a process which requires cooperation. So at some point of time when it will be, like I said, too much for everyone to go still with this unstructured data, it will change to the structured data.
And just add to that one, it's like one of that we have at the moment several programs with around credit control and with insurers, and then the issue is that the cooperation between insurers and brokers is not standardized. So quite often information about premium which is being sent to insurer is sent for several policies, and then commission is automatically deducted, and quite often insurers have really problem to identify which policy is being paid. And this is a really big issue in London market. So that's there's actually several programs, several insurers to help them automate. What would help if there would be a standardized data structure between brokers and insurers. Any further questions? Is there? I specifically asked, and they called someone, but I can't influence that. I'm sorry. Any questions, or maybe you can also share opinion or observations.
At the end, do you help to reduce the use of Excel?
You ask how the business user accept the result.
I think you started saying that there are too much Excel files.
Mm-hmm.
So after your project, is there less Excel files?
These tools are not a remedy for those things. It's just to accept the situation. But yeah, internally there are less Excel files, so they're starting to using those tools. But externally they don't have any influence. So still inflow of the information from the external world, so meaning from reinsurers or from clients, because brokers also contact with the clients. Yeah, it's still in the format that is like provided by them. So it's or a simple mail. Or sometimes text message even, yeah, because that's the clients, or they call and they say you need to change that, yeah, and somebody puts a note. So it's not easy to make human beings structured, because they do not like to have everything in one place and in the way that you want, yeah. So it's not changing. It's changing slowly, because if it makes for them easy to input this data, then they do it. But those contracts are usually not easy, so it's not like they can do this in one way. And especially that, like it was already mentioned, there is no standardization. So every single broker requires a little bit different set of data or structured differently. Yeah, that's what we saw also on the market. So even if client is not exclusively working with one broker, they can sometimes have like multiple sets of the data. Reinsurance, that's even they need to use the broker systems. Yeah, so you see that. It's not easy to convince the people to change their mind. But like I said, community, if they agree to the common, like in the London market, common data record, yeah? So you have like this standardization of the information flow, then it helps.
I mean, the success is not when they stop using Excel spreadsheets. No. The success is when data processing and all processing are outside the Excel spreadsheets. Yep. When they sometimes get generated Excel to play, but then transaction and the whole transformations are outside in the systems, that's already success. But because then you manage the data quality, you manage data in the way how you want to influence. But so that's
For the Excel spreadsheet, it's a different source, but it's not a part of this presentation. I think some kind of the course, whatever is available on the market, like Prima Excel, DXC Assure, which was shown yesterday, Guidewire, whatever could, then it's like a solution for your internal Excel spreadsheets and Access databases. Yeah.
Any further observations?
You talk about how the data is either structured or unstructured, and it starts with some source document typically, or transaction. And if it's an unstructured document, a memo, a note, a photograph, a video, an audio file, how do you work with the client to come up with a common taxonomy of tags or some other data elements that can be used across the system?
So it's during the workshops that we analyze the inflow of the data, so we know what is the source of the information that you're using right now. So you go through the current processes, yeah? Some documented, some not documented. In our experience, most are not documented, so or documented at a high level. So somebody is processing this, output this information to this person, but it does not show in details what's happening. So that's the first step. So we know what's incoming. If it is email, if it is text message, if in email there is an attachment which is a PDF document or Word document or Excel spreadsheet or a photo, like you said, and then we attach to those inflows tools that can be used. So there are some algorithms which can process pictures, and they are good on that. We also need, there are some pre-trained, but usually they're on the mass occurrence thing. So it's like motor, property, it's out of the box that you can buy them. But if we are talking about the reinsurance part, there are no out of the box algorithms. We have some of them trained based on other clients. And the thing is to get those the documents by type, then by content, because most of them have repetitive content, yeah, and then we train them based on content, and we choose what's important for you. So one client is sending invoice, for example, that what we automated in one format, so we know that it's always this client, and we recognize it by attachment, going to the attachment, knowing that there is in right place a logo, and we know that those invoices are usually in the same structure, or at least in the same patterns. It does not mean that the always number of the invoice needs to be in the same place, but usually they are putting like NR invoice and the number. So we are looking for a placing document for that. So on the high level, structurization, what's incoming, then types of the documents, and then matching documents with the possible algorithms.
Right, I understand. Invoices are by definition a structured document because there are required data elements in there, so that will go into, that should match up to a client system. If you're dealing with other types of unstructured data that has elements that are necessary to go into the system, but they're not necessarily machine readable.
Yeah, but if we can point by finger, it's like I was working that, for example, this is what we ingest, it looks like that, and it's not like always different thing, then it can be recognized. One of the examples we did, signatures. This signature is in the document. It's something which is not easily detectable. It can be on different places, but we learned the algorithm to check if there is a signature on those documents, yeah? And it's not like ingestible easily, yeah? But it's still in the document. So it's possible. Not everything is doable, so I will not promise that everything is possible to automate, because it's based on like the technologies and effort that you want to put, because it doesn't make sense to automate, like I said, letter which is happening once per year. You will not have a business case on that. Yeah? Technically it's possible, but business case will not be approved, yeah? Because spending like 4 months of work to automatic 2 hours of work of someone, that's not a good investment, yeah? At least in the beginning. Does that explain? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other observations or questions? You must be from Germany.
What about confidentiality of data?
That's the part of, for me, regulations, yeah? So what's possible to be used in the cloud or not possible by cloud? And what we see is changing, yeah? So the regulator, the market, sorry, I will try just speak louder. So the regulators are adopting to the market, and they are approving solutions. Yeah, of course, they put some restrictions, but usually the restrictions requires papers from the providers of the cloud. That's what's happening there. So they are assured, for example, in Europe. Okay, that's good. So the regulators are putting some kind of enforcement. So, for example, data cannot be taken out of the European Union. But the cloud solution, I know that, do not go into the technical details, that can provide you isolated machine for you only. So nobody else will be able to access them, yeah? Of course, you still at the end have like this trust and disagreement, but it's on the paper between the provider of the cloud, because they have access to everything which is in there. Only like restricted people, it's secured, it's audited, and so on, but they have access, but nobody else will have this access, yeah? And you also, when you use those models, Michał mentioned ChatGPT, but we are not using that at the most cases. You can also say if you want your data to be used by others in anonymized way or not. And then you have like a different price, yeah? Because, you know, they are using this model to train it to make it better. That's why they're giving this for free or for a special price if you are allowing to use your data to train this model. If you are not allowing, then you can also still use it, but you just pay a little bit more because they're like the income from that is not a big, yeah?
All right. I mean, it's like if you after have any further questions or if you want to find out more, then you know how to reach out to us. So we are from Solars Consulting. Our names were in the presentation, so our address, email address, we can exchange business cards, but also it's a name.surname@solars.eu. So since we come originally from Europe, that's why we underline that also in our the domain address. So that's unless there is a very, very last question or opinion or anything you would like to share or us to respond. Thank you very much for coming and for your attention.